Okay, we're going to be looking at Illustrator in a minute, but before we do that, we probably need to just clarify and clear up one of the sort of basic fundamentals of computer graphics, which is the two drawing systems that are used on a computer, which really fundamentally comes down to the two different ways that we actually store the data. Because at the end of the day, that's what's being being generated here. When you draw on a computer, you're generating data of some description or another, and it's how you store that data. Okay, and so far you've been using Photoshop or GIMP or what we call a raster stroke bitmap drawing application, which is fundamentally storing images as pixels, and each pixel has a value as a piece of data and is stored. And that affects the way the image looks. And you get these grid type images, okay, whereby the image is made up of a series of colored pixels. Drawing with what we call a vector is very different, because what's happening when you draw with a vector is that you are effectively plotting points in space, and then the computer program is storing this data by calculating the difference between those points in space. The net result is that what you end up with is two very different types of image, with both having advantages and disadvantages, and have different uses. Pixels are excellent when you want to draw complex images. And let's have a little look at an example of that. Okay, so over here, you can see we've got two images. One as a painting with all the painterly effects on it, okay, which you would need to save using a pixel-based system, yeah, because on the right, you've got a much more illustrated image, which uses basic, simple, bold colors, yeah, because you're plotting points in space. Now, what happens when you start drawing in Illustrator and plotting these points, the more points you get, the more complex the image gets. And if you have too many points to try and replicate the image on the left, the problem is that you end up creating a really complex vector image, okay, which then would create huge amounts of memory on the computer, etc., etc. So to draw a complex image, a photograph, an image with lots of gradients of color, etc., etc., you would definitely be needing to use a pixel-based system for storing it. And that would be an image you'd be generating in, for example, working in a program like Photoshop. On the other hand, for simple drawings that involve more diagrammatic, more stylized drawings, diagrams, etc., etc., then Illustrator starts to come into its own as a way of working. Now, these are very rough. There are lots of other reasons for using Illustrator that you'll discover and find as you move on. The other major advantage of using the vector is they are what we call scalable. Now then, when you scale up an image that's been saved as a pixel image, i.e. a JPEG or a Photoshop image or a GIF file, you'll notice that the quality starts to deteriorate. Yeah, because the bigger the pixels get, as you enlarge it up, the less definition you get in the image. However, when you enlarge up a vector image, it scales, so it rescales the quality to refit the new size, because it's using, they're kind of treated as objects, and those objects are scalable, and those points in space just recalculate. So you end up with, for example, you'd always end up with a crisp edge if you're enlarging that drawing. And as you enlarge this up, you end up with a a furry edge. So they're the basic fundamental principles of using and working with vector graphics.